Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. I recently joined as a member, and you can too. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with the advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co.
And please put Unprofessional Development in the How Did You Hear About Podgo? That will give us a little finder's fee. Thank you.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a very clickable episode of Unprofessional Development. I'm Tudisco.
And I'm Mealey. And today we have with us Elsie Escobar. So some of you know her because she's famous from She Podcasts, and some of you don't. This is the only podcast you've ever listened to, so you don't know that she's awesome like I do. But anyway, we're going to kind of get to know her, and you'll become quick fans. So one of the things I've been doing this year, Elsie, has been giving people different prompts. Instead of like, give me your like bullet point bio and, going chronologically or whatever, I just kind of mix it up and make it fun. So I want you to describe yourself as a smoothie. Okay. And what goes into and what has gone into what makes Elsie who Elsie is today.
As a smoothie? Oh my God.
So, but the ingredients don't have to be vegetables. They could be like things that influenced you and and life events and all of that. So it's a metaphorical smoothie. Yeah.
It's a metaphor. Oh, come on. I was like so into the whole, like, it has coconut in it and it has all kinds of wild greens in it.
Okay, that's cool.
And like those, I think that coconut and wild edible greens and cocoa nibs and some ashwagandha, all of those things.
I don't know what ashwagandha is.
Some fruit, some frozen fruit. I'm not quite sure exactly what. So given all of those little bits and pieces, I think, what really makes me a smoothie is the mixture between my heritage, my culture. I come from very close to the equator, so I have an affinity to anything that is warm and anything that's green and anything that's not spicy as in like spicy hot, because where I come from, spicy hot to eat is not a thing, but lots of spice to the people. And also being able to move into a holistic approach of living my life.
Okay.
Especially with, I'm really influenced by the teachings of Ayurveda, which is the sister science to yoga, which is the science of life.
Okay.
It is sort of like the medicinal approach.
Okie dokie.
To that.
Cool.
And aligning yourself with with your environment to live a holistic lifestyle. So those are some of the things. Mind you, I am obsessed with podcasting, so I didn't know how to, what that would be in a smoothie.
Yeah, I don't. Well, who?
That's the whipped cream on top.
Yeah,
is that what that is?
That's the creatine
smoothie and go, man, you would make this amazing.
It's not
podcast.
Okay, it's not
right?
the creatine powder that you put in to
Podcast is the straw.
Oh wow!
The podcast is the straw. Maybe that's what it is.
The reusable
with the
metal
big
straw
hole
that's
in
good
it
for the environment.
Yeah, totally. Yes.
Well. But speaking of that, though, what was it that got you into podcasting? Were you a huge listener before you got into being on the behind the scenes end and doing it yourself, or how did that happen?
I think it happened all at the same time.
Okay.
Because when I started to listen to podcasts had just been born.
Right. Yes.
So I started listening, shortly after that.
Okay.
So that, in the history of podcasts, they started to come into the scene around 2004, right?
Right.
2004. At 2005, in December, I got an iPod, one of those little ones with the video iPod, like the fifth generation for Christmas. And I didn't have any digital music at that time. So I had this really cool, very expensive device that I couldn't use because I had
really
nothing
nice paperweight, though.
in it. Yeah, exactly. So I thought, oh my gosh, I have to find something. And of course, you synced it into iTunes. And I had my little PC at that time that had iTunes, and it opened up. And of course I saw the music and I'm like, I am not going to be spending money on music because why should I? I had a crap ton of CDs all over the place and I wasn't going to spend the same, I wasn't going to buy it again.
Right.
I mean, who does that?
No.
And so.
And you didn't have, I guess that was pre being able to like, and I don't even know how this was done with CD burning. How did you could you get stuff that you already owned onto your iPod? Did that ever happen?
I had to, my computer had the little CD thingy on the side.
Turn them into
and then
MP3s.
I had to get there and then rip that music and put it into iTunes.
Yeah.
So I had to go through that whole entire process every single time. And therefore, at that time when I was doing that, of course, that's what I was going to do. But I really wanted to use this thing right away. And of course, I wasn't at home when I got this device. Mm-hmm. I was at the home that I was celebrating Christmas at that point. And so I couldn't do all of the things. So I opened up iTunes because I wanted to use it. And I saw this thing that said podcasts. And I thought, okay, what is this? And so I went in there and I just started to look through the iTunes store and focused on things that I was curious about.
Right.
And at that time, I was teaching yoga full time. And so I'm such a dork. The first thing that I downloaded when I went in there was an anatomy class.
Okay.
It was because at that time there were actually this is still available through iTunes University, but at that time everything was together. So there were full courses, like complete courses.
Nice.
Of university courses that you could go. So I downloaded an anatomy course. And then I also, of course, I downloaded things like from NPR. I forgot which one, but it was like, the one that everybody.
Right. This American Life or all things.
Yeah, exactly. So I downloaded This American Life because those are things that I kind of knew. Well, obviously, you know those. And then I downloaded it. And that's how I started to listen. Eventually, though, what happened is when I was in there at first, I thought like, okay, podcast, I had never heard of the word.
Right.
I didn't even, and at that time, when you searched, you had like 5 results.
Nice.
And so then when I searched and then I found the results, the definition was just as confusing as the term. So even if I was reading it, I was like, I don't understand any of these things.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know what RSS feed was. I didn't know what MP3 really was. And I didn't know what enclosure tag. I was like, I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is now, even.
Now, like, I know, but at that time it was like, oh, this is...
I know what RSS feed, but no idea what enclosure tag is. Okay.
Yeah, it's just, I had no clue. So...
Those are the tags they put on animals before they release them into the wild.
Oh, that's good.
Right.
Yeah, they do that with podcasters sometimes.
That's smart. That's right, we can track them. That's good.
Oh my gosh. But so in the iTunes podcast area, right? Yeah. So they had, of course, they had a podcast about podcasting.
Yeah.
And so
meta,
downloaded that because I was curious.
And who was that, by the way?
It was my co-host from my other show.
So that was Jess? Okay.
It was Rob Walsh, VP of Podcast Relations at Libsyn.
Okay, so that one I haven't listened to.
It's still there. It's called Podcast 411.
Cool.
And it was essentially, I have a feeling, it was the very, very first podcast that was an interview format.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Now there's like so many, but at that time,
there's a few of them.
Like that one. And he would interview independent podcasters, like the everyday type of podcasters like we are, versus the famous people that are doing the NPR's, stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was fascinating to me. Fascinating to have the behind the scenes of these people who were in all different parts of the world. And Rob would really get into the weeds. He's very technically minded and he really loves to know the stuff. So he would ask them like, his first question was always like, what was your first computer? And what's your microphone? So everybody would talk about the tech and I got riveted by the stories and how all of these people had really interesting podcasts. Like they were super different. Yeah. And then, so because he had them on his show, I started to listen to these people's shows, podcasts, right?
Obviously, yeah.
And then when I started to listen to those people's shows, I thought, I can do that. Because when I listened to This American Life,
that's hard to do.
I had no desire to do that. Because I thought that's really amazing.
It's fantastic. I love it.
It's fantastic to be able to do that. But I had no internal, I want to design I want audio design. I want to tell stories. Like I didn't have that feel.
Yeah.
And so when I started to listen to the shows that Rob was featuring on Podcast 411, they were very much doable. And I thought, I have something to say too.
There you go.
I want to do that.
There you go.
So then I started down that rabbit hole.
Cool.
Wait, you were supposed to start with wanting to say something?
I know, right?
I just started talking and hoped the meaning would fill in at some point.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was the point, I think, of the podcast. The ones that yes, that's exactly the point. Like with This American Life, I felt like you have to have a thing. You have to have like the whole, whereas with this, it felt like I can just start.
I've listened to,
that record button.
I was gonna say, I've listened to Ira talk about some of the process behind that. It is like, for like a hour show or whatever, 50 some minutes, whatever it is, it takes them like 6-8 months to make like each one. They've got like 30 of them that they're all making all at the same time and gathering all these little pieces, and then the sound and the editing and then I'm like, that's lovely for you, but I can't imagine what that is.
We're more efficient than NPR.
We're way more efficient than NPR.
High five.
Yes. They spent whatever.
Totally.
For those of you who don't know, just listen to ours for the first time. We just kind of I'm a podcast addict. Tudisco is kind of I'd say a podcast fan, but I think I'm maybe a little deeper down the rabbit hole than you, Tudisco.
You're far deeper down the rabbit hole, though I do like a good podcast.
Yes, yeah, and I love podcasts.
Recently, I've been on a philosophize this kick.
Okay.
All right, good.
I don't know that one.
Guard.
I've been listening. Who have I been listening to? Dark Web Diaries is one I've been listening to.
Darknet
Diaries.
Darknet, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Because I know you're and we had him on one time. And I know you guys are friends. Dave Jackson was I listened. So him and you are those are the main podcast about podcasts that I listen to. Not every week, but almost every week I listen to, you guys. And so I just, and cause I love, it's fun. It really is. And completely two different shows. Like very, you know, a lot of the information is there's a big Venn diagram overlap of the information, but then a lot of stuff that he focuses on and that you guys focus on is very different. And his is a solo, and you guys has that, has the partnership vibe that I like. I think everyone should have a co-host. I mean, God bless you for your solos, but I think having a co-host makes my job 10 times easier.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yes. I completely agree. But mind you though, it is really hard to find the right co-host.
Yes.
Because there's been times when I've had people fill in. And it feels really, it's kind of very awkward.
Yeah.
Sometimes I know what both of my co-hosts are like, and they're very different. They're very different. Like So I vibe with both of them.
Yeah.
They're vastly different, but I also know what to expect and where I need to step in and where I don't need to step in. And it's really weird when you have somebody you haven't worked with where you're like, you send them something and then it's like,
and the fact that me and Tudisco works, well, I think we both agree, is a completely happy accident.
Right.
Like I kind of like we talked this.
There wasn't any planning or forethought.
Very little, other than like, hey, there's a guy. I know that the other students at the school think he's funny and that he's cool. So I'll like ask him if he wants to do it. And then we both, when we walked out of that first recording, were like, Hey! Cause I had listened to other things, I'm like, it's supposed to suck when you first do it, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's supposed to be weird. And we walked out and we're like, that didn't suck, you know? And then we like let other people listen to it. The best one was, Barenfeld Tudisco. So we have a mutual friend, Barenfeld, and he listened to it and I see him like 3 or 4 days later, and he stops me, going from one part of campus to another. He goes, hey, I listened to your podcast because I'm your friend and I thought it was a nice thing to do. He's like, but I really actually liked it. I don't have to like lie to you.
Oh my gosh, that's the best.
It really is. It really is. It's so
that your special moment and not that your mommy thinks your special moment.
That's
right.
That's right. We all want that. We all kind of want that. Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Having a co-host makes my life 50 times easier. Mostly because Mealey carries this podcast.
Oh,
You do have to have that. Oh, gosh.
Oh, yes. You're good. I was going to say, but no. Well, we both have the two things that we love. I love that, I don't have to worry about any of the editing and any of the, stuff like that. And it just shows up in the RSS feed and Tudisco handles that. And Tudisco likes that he doesn't have to do anything but show up every other Saturday at 1 and 3. And magically there's, somebody on the Zoom to talk to and questions to ask them.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's fantastic. It's like, and especially what you're talking about. I think when it comes to podcasting, you both do need to have that sort of, the things that you each do that are really the thing that you do. Mm-hmm. And I've never had to, with either one of my co-hosts, I've never had to be the one that's like, I want to do that. No, I want to do that.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Like we just do what we do.
Yeah. And it's nice to have stuff to not do as well. Also, that's one of the benefits about having a co-host. It's really.
Yes, it is.
Wait, why are we making a podcast again?
Because we like to watch movies and yell about them.
They yell about directors, yell about the plot, yell about the acting, but they also talk a lot. But mostly Josh and Cassie yell about the movies.
Hey, everybody, I'm Cassie.
And I'm Josh.
And we are the hosts of the brand new podcast, Josh and Cassie Yell About Movies.
Each week, we're breaking down a different film and sharing our unique perspectives and holding nothing back.
And fair warning, this is a spoiler-heavy podcast, so yeah, just be aware of that, please.
Do we make jokes, or is there anything else?
Gosh, I hope so. I have fun laughing at you.
Well, thanks. And we yell about movies, is that right?
That's right. We upload new episodes on Tuesdays, so hopefully we'll see you then.
Thanks for listening. All right, so, Elsie, we've talked a lot about podcasts, but I want to switch it over and start talking about education and back to that education piece. So, you made the decision to homeschool.
Yes.
Right? So,
Yes.
When did you make that decision? And what have you learned since you started the homeschooling?
Gosh, I think that when I decided to homeschool the babies, right from the get-go, we decided it was just a choice. Even at that time, we were living in an area that was not the best part of town.
Mm-hmm.
When we were in Pittsburgh at that time, and we just realized that putting them to school there would have been a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And also and if we wanted to have them in a sort of, I'm using air quotes now, in a better school.
Right.
It was way too expensive for us to do that,
Right.
So it was just like, no, we're going to do this ourselves. And we started to very slowly and organically start to take the children as they started to grow into places where they could get as much education as they could, given all of the free options that were around in Pittsburgh, like going to the library, taking them to like Spanish classes, going to reading things, all of those things.
Right.
And doing lots of time. And I was with them. Gosh, I mean, I've always been with them all day, every day. So it's sort of like you just naturally teach them. You naturally teach.
Right. It just
stuff
became an
to
extension of your parenting.
Okay. But what was really interesting is that we just started to do that. And we have been very unconventional in the way that we homeschool them. Mm-hmm. We give them a lot of lived experience. We try to give them all the skill sets that I think that one of the reasons that we wanted to homeschool too is because I felt that as a child, I was a real go-getter and I was really, really good at school. I was very good at school, for sure. I mean, I excelled in every aspect of school you possibly could. Obviously, my parents initially forced me to, but then I had sort of that inner desire to really be the best that I could. But I really did not excel at interpersonal communications, common sense, and just being in the world.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So you could do you could do the academics, but when it came to as the kids say, street smarts, you didn't have that.
Yeah, I had street smarts. I did because, and this is so weird. I did because I came from a third world country, and when you come from a third world country, you know how to stay safe, and you have an extra understanding of actually the evil and the darkness in the world was really prevalent in my life when I was little and young. So in that respect, I was really great.
Okay, so you had the street smarts, but you didn't.
I had that street, but I did not have the general conversational, how you speak up for yourself. Mm-hmm. How do you? I really had a really hard time even buying something without my mom doing it for me, like going up and asking for things, standing in line, filling out forms, there's just the basic things that will get me further at times. Everything was very mental, and I happen to have been very intuitive in a lot of different ways, but there were a lot of things that I just, I'm
not a trained diagnoser person,
right?
But you consider yourself, or were you ever diagnosed to be somewhere on the spectrum?
I am, as of now, ADHD is like something that has come to my, like, I just been doing a lot of research, and I'm going to walk through the path of diagnosis, because I think one of my children is as well. We've been observing her. And then when I see, like, she's a lot like the way that I was, and in going down the ADHD research hole, I had a moment just a couple months ago, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, where I felt so angry because I saw myself in all of this, and I thought, why am I almost 50? And I just found this. I was pissed. I was so mad. And I was, and it wasn't like a relief, like, oh, that's what it is. I was just livid because I just thought, like, this is insane. If I would have known, I could have avoided all of this other heartache.
Yes, yeah.
So anyway, but yes, and I do feel, so there were little things like that. And in watching both of my children, I've been really intuitive in how they achieve and do things and learn and what best works for each one of them, that I don't even understand how the school system actually does stuff like that. Like my little ADHD child.
Just barely.
Yeah.
Just barely. I make a list.
We throw him in a corner.
You throw him in a corner. No, I mean,
we tell them there's all sorts of lovely consequences for kids that struggle to function inside a normal environment. So we do. I mean, I'm not saying there's lots of lovely things that they do for them as well. There really is. No. And there are lots of teachers that do really, really great things for them, but there are also, like, a lot of times where they've slipped through cracks, and they have a lot of challenges due to the fact that they just, the boxes that they don't fit in the box very well.
Yeah. And one of the biggest lessons that I learned from my first, and that what I had to let go of.
Oh, let's stop for just a second and tell us what their ages are right now.
Oh, right now, 12 and 9.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So, when we started to do this stuff, right? So, teaching them, when I don't know, around 3, 4, like that, just to, obviously, just
right.
to
letters, numbers, colors, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. We started to do that. And I was obsessed with looking at stuff, going like, when should she insert whatever the thing is, right?
Oh, no. Oh.
When does she need to know the thing? When does she have to write the stuff? When does she... And I was obsessed with that. And
it feels good when they're ahead, but it's horrible if they're behind.
Yeah. And so, like, I was, like, totally holding her and being stressed every time. Like, she doesn't know this yet. She doesn't know that. Oh, wait, we need to have her do the thing because she's X now, And my husband was like, chill out. She will be fine. She's fine.
Yeah.
She's fine.
Yeah.
And I was like, but, and he's like, just relax. And I remember thinking, I was so stressed out about her reading. Like, I was trying to, in some way, like, I'm sure she felt me being like, oh my gosh, she needs to read. Now she needs to read, right? And I was trying to relax, but I was really just wound up about the whole thing. Because as somebody who's homeschooling,
right.
I thought, how is this even going to happen?
Yeah.
Because I've never done this before, right?
Yes.
I've never taught anybody to read.
Right.
So then I thought, I don't even know how is this going to happen? Because it looks like she's not doing it. And then one day she just started. Then one day she just read. She started reading. And I thought, what? She just was ready. And she just started reading. Like, she just did it.
Just like walking sometimes. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, we're going to help them. We're going to we're going to do these exercises, whatever we're going to do. The ability is in there, but for whatever reason, they just haven't unlocked it or tried it. I remember with one of my kids, I'm like, I know they can walk. I see how strong they are. They just need to let go of the couch and start walking. As soon as they do, they'll be fine, but they don't want to try yet. And when they do, they do, and I think that can be with a lot of things that you learn.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that to me it's always a challenge for me to navigate my own expectations that are self. And so my husband would always say, why are you feeling this way? And the majority of the answer was always like, because you're supposed to. And then he would go, who said?
Right.
And then I would go,
you have a wise husband.
What?
You have a wise husband.
I have a no, I know
It's
I
not
do.
a sentence most people get to say.
Yes.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's really, really grounded and he's really solid. He's a very smart man. And so he would just go, who said that? And then I would just come up with like, well, you're supposed to because by the time and he goes, who said that? And so then I would have to see that I was so caught up with just rules that I had. And again, that goes back to the way that I was raised, which was all around rules and guidelines and following this and never really questioning what you're supposed to do, which part of the entire reason where I did feel that I failed in certain parts is because I knew how to navigate the system of rules. So I was amazing at getting amazing grades without learning anything.
Right.
I was amazing at filling out test forms.
You can game the system.
I totally was so good at it.
Yep.
I finished, college in 3 years. So the fourth year, because I had accumulated all the stuff, I just hung out. It was amazing, by the way. It was such a great, wonderful year that year because I had like 3 classes and I was just like, woohoo. And I still was like, got like really great grades and all of this stuff. But I had figured it out so that I got everything taken care of. And then the last year I just was chilling, which is great. I mean, that's
It
good.
is nice. Yeah.
But
I did the opposite way. I was chilling from the beginning, and then that's why I flunked out of college the first time because I was just straight up chilling from the get go. Then I had to go back when I was older and work really hard and do all the other stuff that you did. So yeah,
I'm the porridge that Goldilocks chose. Then I just
nice
all more years and did all right.
Oh, that's good. See, I know. See, that's good. That's also good. But yeah, for sure. But anyway. All I'm saying is that I've learned a lot in the journey of of questioning myself as well. Like, what is it that they truly need to know?
Yeah.
And so I keep going, like, what is essential to them?
That's very, very important.
In this world.
Yeah.
And what is it that they need to know in order to do that? And so I've had to sort of reverse engineer the skill set that they need in order to succeed at doing these things. And, my 9-year-old is again, very, very smart. She's what I view, we have not been diagnosed, but we're in the process of getting that.
Yeah.
But I can, I can kind of see it. But her thing is, just the other day, we had a card and her grandma had a birthday. Yep. And all they had to do was sign their name.
Yep.
And she's sitting there and she started to cry. And I was like, what is happening? And she goes, I don't want to. I'm like, you don't want to sign your name. She has her name is May. It's M-A-E.
Right.
Like, and she knows how to, again, she knows how to write. Like, she knows how to write and read. Like, all of this is known. She's great at it.
Yeah.
She writes me, she's great. But she started crying and I'm like, what's the matter? She goes, I hate my handwriting.
Oh.
And she had a complete breakdown.
Wow.
And I was like, what is and then she finally revealed to me, she has a sense of shame in being judged by her handwriting, which is all in her head.
Right.
She's a 9-year-old.
Yeah. Well, she's comparing herself to just like you were comparing to some standard that is just random. It's not completely random. Someone made it up based on some average that they've done of other kids, but it's some standard that doesn't mean that your handwriting should be this or ever or at this age or whatever. But yeah, sometimes, and 9-year-olds can be, she's got a lot of self-awareness, which is super positive. But then to be comparing herself to that it's tough. It's tough. Yep. Yeah.
So we had to talk through, that's the kind of stuff that I feel like I don't want her like that for me to be able to explain to her, you have to understand the difference between the reality of what's happening and what your brain is telling you that is not true.
Yeah.
I'm not the one that's going to be able to tell you that all the time. And part of it is that you have to understand it. You have to be able to believe it. Mm-hmm. And so we sat there and and part of it is the stress that she felt with all of us going like, just write your name.
Yeah, we got to put this in the envelope.
Honestly. And so we stepped away, let her do her thing, had her, calm down a little bit, and then she can write her little name down and being able to understand and navigate that process, and for her to know that we can talk about it and go, that's in your brain. Your brain is making you think these things. We have to figure out how you can stop that process so that you can get the thing done. Because she can. She's insane. She's amazing at doing everything. But she's also a perfectionist, right? She's like, when you were talking about walking, most kids are like, like holding the wall and like, oh, I'm gonna go that way. I'm gonna go that way. She was like in the middle of the floor. She just stood up and took off. And I'm like,
wow.
What the? She did that for bike riding as well.
Yeah.
Her daddy spent 2 months helping her to like pushing her and, oh my God, you got it. And like, he was like, kinesthetically letting her know like how to like where the balance, all this stuff.
Yes.
This one just got on the bike and just took off.
Wow.
She just does things. She just does it. And so when she doesn't do things perfectly right off the bat, she gets really disappointed in herself.
Oh, that's tough when you can do it a lot of times and then you find the areas that you can't. Mm-hmm. It can be extremely frustrating. I was going to say 2 things. First of all, parent hack. Okay. Next time, just if it ever happens again, or you have another 9-year-old or 8-year-old, you just take your non-dominant hand and you write your name with that so it looks like a kid wrote it. Okay. So, and then forget, sorry, May or whoever. It's going off to grandma now. I'm putting a stamp on, and we're done. We don't have to worry about you anymore. You can sign
conversation.
Right. You can sign one. You can sign one next year.
Brilliant.
Second of all, see that's the stuff that our listeners tune in for. You never know those gems you're going to get. But second of all.
Perfect.
I actually literally had this conversation, and it's related to all this. And we were talking about like traditional school is that we expect kids to be doing X by this age. Right. And because of that, what that leads to so much of is social promotion. Because what happens is, well, they can't do it in 4th grade. Well, that's not that. We're sorry about that, but they're going to now be this old, so they need to be in this grade, And so we're like, push them into that grade, but they're not ready for it because they're ahead, behind, or whatever it is. And you're like, nope, you're 9, you're in this grade. You're 13, you're in that grade. And it's like, why? That doesn't make any sense. Why don't you do it when you're actually like your daughter is ready to do it? If you're ready early, woohoo! If you're ready a year or 2 later, woohoo! Then what I mean. You'll get there, and so that's a luxury I guess you have with homeschools that you can kind of do those things at things that make sense for the individual.
And here's what else I appreciate about that story. Like if you took that story and you translated it to a traditional classroom, and this is why I really appreciate homeschooling, because I know for a lot of people homeschooling has a stigma, right? But like homeschooling is so beneficial, and there's so many. Mealey, how many times we had a kid in our class who's either so advanced or so far behind that we just shrugged our shoulders and said, "I guess I'm not doing anything for them."
Right. Unless I'm going to
what else can we do?
I can't ignore 22 kids and just spend like an hour with you because you are so different from these other ones. Maybe I can put you on some kind of website or give you some kind of activity to do that's different, but that's not anywhere near getting my attention or the majority of my lesson planning brain.
Helping.
Right.
So, like, if you think about it in a traditional classroom, there's like, okay, you need to do this, and then the kid breaks down crying. How many teachers will just go to the office and then move on with their day?
Yeah.
Homeschooling is a really wise decision for a lot of students who need it, and for a lot of people who can who have that ability.
Right, who have the resources to be able to do that. Yeah.
So I think it's awesome that you're homeschooling. I think that's great.
Yeah. And I was going to say that, and that's I'm sure a challenge for you when you were talking about wanting to check those boxes that you're arguing with your husband about who says, is that you have to fight that. Well, you're comparing to what the other school's doing, and is my 11-year-old, and if my 11-year-old can't, blah blah blah. Right. When I go meet with parents who don't homeschool, and they say, "Did they read such and such? Are they? Yeah. Do they know how to do their times tables? Do they?" And you're like, and if you tell them like no, all of a sudden you're like, oh, "Yeah, homeschool, I get it." Yeah. Like.
Because it's like one of those things where you do feel there's so much of it that you do feel like a little like, oh my God, right? And even within homeschooling communities, there is that as well, because there are different programs that have different types of focus things that you do, right? And they are established to support, I think, the primary value system of the home. And sometimes it's very hard to find like a balance between all of that as well.
Yeah.
Because all of them also have really strong things that you're like, oh my gosh, that's really great.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other aspects where you're just like, I'm not sure I want that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I'm not sure that's no. And what I am finding now too is that the resources for homeschooling for elementary school is pretty solid. Like there's a lot of stuff for that. And we can teach at elementary school level. Like there's enough of
your comfort with the content is really high.
Yeah. You can get a lot of totally. And you can remember things and you go, oh yeah, I remember when I did that, or break things down, and it's not too hard. Like I do have to spend some time with like terms when it comes to grammar. Mm-hmm. Even though I'm a good writer, I don't remember how to name all the things. You know, and
a
so
preposition
like,
versus a predicate.
And I'm like, I don't remember. That's been a long time since I had to name all the things, or I know what it is, but I can't. I don't have a definition for you that I can just say, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have to spend time, doing things like that.
And just keep dodging the question, how do commas work? And you'll be fine.
I'm still having a problem with that as well. But anyway, and now there's
America is having a problem with that.
Yeah.
Yes, I have a comma problem. I put commas in all the places.
I don't. I'm a math teacher. I use dashes, even though the name people use subtraction sign.
I was just going to mention dashes are a thing now too.
I use them intermittently all the time. They just break up phrases and thoughts and ideas all the time. And English teachers probably see my writing and just cringe half the time. But I'm like,
just say you're influenced by Emily Dickinson. They'll be very impressed.
Cool. I will say that.
Is that how it goes? Yeah.
Did she use a lot of dashes? I didn't know that. Okay.
Oh yes.
Okay, cool.
We should all do that for sure. But now that my daughters are starting more towards the path beyond elementary school, like I'm getting a little worried because then I'm like, I don't know what's and that's when I'm kind of sitting back thinking like, it's a balance between the things that they do need to know or like the structure of what the classes are like in school where you have your history class and your English class and your PE and, all those things. And where she is naturally moving towards in her everyday engagement with the world. So right now, they're really into designing these characters and these like mini sort of video clip things. I don't even know. And like they add music to it and they like animate it and then they do like all of this stuff and then they'll share it with each other and they're layering things and so there's like all of this and
they're doing graphic design and animation. Yes,
exactly. And so then when I'm thinking about that, I go, okay, so because there's obviously this is a skill. This is something that people pay for. This is something they love to do. So how do you like layer the things and continue to help them with that and then keep the rounded other
to check the other boxes that people supposedly that they think that you need to check.
I mean, at that age in art class, I was just making like hand turkeys, so I'm pretty sure learning how to like tinker with computers and graphic design will probably help them a little more.
Right.
Well, see, this is and so
what you didn't grow up to get a hand turkey drawing job.
If my hand turkey came to life, I would scream and run.
What does your dad do? He works at the hand turkey factory, of course.
Oh my gosh.
He's really good at it. He's got his thumb is double jointed like Marcy Birnbaum's was in mine sat next to me in third grade. Her hand turkey was the best because she could bend her thumb back and had a completely different thing. But anyway, sorry. Love you, Marcy Birnbaum.
Yeah, but it's true. Oh my God, look at that. She's crazy.
My first real crush. Oh my goodness, she was beautiful. But anyway.
Oh my
Sorry.
God.
Yeah, that's what
were we talking about?
We're talking about hand turkeys, obviously.
Hand turkeys.
No, we're talking about Elsie's daughter and her skills, but we had a person on. Her name is Janet Lasole, and she does something called unschooling. And I don't know if you're familiar with this.
I've heard of unschooling.
And she wrote a book called Taking a Ride on the Chicken Bus or something like that. And she
Adventures by Chicken Bus. And so she literally like sold everything she owned and went was it Honduras? Because you're from Ecuador, right?
I'm from El Salvador.
El Salvador. I'm sorry. Okay, close. My bad.
Very close to Honduras, much closer than Ecuador. Right.
But she went to Honduras for like 2 years and just like went on like an adventure, and had her kids learn by just doing that. And then she talked about, in more details in the episode, but her daughter was really into theater. And so she took her to this thing, and now her daughter has like this theater career, and she didn't really like worry if her daughter checked all the other boxes,
right,
because she's like, this is what she wants to do. And who cares if she knows like, this little factoid or whatever it is thing, or have read this book that, everyone else read when they get.
The fact of the matter is, once they need information, if you teach them how to learn, they can learn.
They can teach. Yes, and this is why I'm impressed with a lot of even some of the jargon that they're coming up with that they're telling me about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't know how they're learning how to do this. And just and then they have this little app that they're working. It's not a very sophisticated app at all.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm really impressed at is the amount of layering that they do. So they are, even though the app itself is not that sophisticated in the way that it actually has a lot of built-in functionality already, what they're doing is they're layering the movements, like the animated aspect of it, the music. They're able now to download. And this is, and
can we give the app a shout out? What's the name of the app? Do you know the name?
It's Gacha. It's Gacha Life, Gacha something. It's like there's a whole entire community around building these crazy little thingies. And so I've been watching all this stuff, and there's like a whole like Gacha community where they all create these little thingies, and they're usually on TikTok. My girls are not on social media,
right? But
you can never stop them.
No.
They're not on any social media.
Right.
But they are allowed to go on YouTube, even though there's like restrictions. And they don't have a YouTube app. I removed their YouTube app. But they go on Safari and they look at YouTube videos. And so they found a way to download. They actually take screencasts.
Yeah.
Of the YouTube videos. And then they rip the audio
into the thing that they're making.
Yeah. And they found all these hacks of how to do this thing. And I'm like, oh my God.
And my students still can't put stuff in Canvas.
But, and see, we're like almost full circle there with like you and just kind of like finding podcasts almost by accident and then going, oh, look what this person's doing. Let me see if I can figure out how to do that. It's very, very similar to what you're doing. And now like, podcasting, like that's what, podcasting pays your bills mostly, right?
Yeah, it is.
Right?
I mean, it's like I would have never in a million years. I mean, you couldn't have even I didn't even exist. It's not like I was born. I'm like, I will be in podcasting.
A podcaster, right? I'll be a podcaster when I grow up. Yeah, no one said that when we were growing up, right?
No. And I mean, and that's why I really believe in the skill set that it has given me, because even starting out just doing the podcast itself, right? So I started doing the podcast. It forced me, when I did the podcast, I knew zero about digital anything, like nothing. So I had to figure out how to, number one, record audio. Yep. I had to figure out how to edit audio. I had to figure out how to build a website, or like, how do you even do that? I had to figure out how to I remember every time, how do somebody put a picture online? Like how do you format? Like I looked up into HTML. I broke down HTML. I figured out what those tags were. I figured out how to put the thing on, where it needed to go. I understood so many different aspects of it, like marketing, copy, like all of that stuff I didn't even know how to name. And I just started doing it, and then I got better at it, because obviously when you know what the name is, what you were just talking about, you search for it. You go like, what is this, and how do I make it better? And design, like all kinds of stuff that I now know how to do, because I started with a podcast and I had to do all the things that you needed to do for podcasting.
Right.
So, and that skill set helped me build my business around podcasting.
Right. You were actually homeschooling yourself at that point.
Yes, totally. And look in 10 years what I've done. Crazy.
Sunday. June 27th, join us for EduPodLoza.
There will be over a dozen EduPodcasters.
Listen for some rhythm and rhyme.
That's a poetry slam, boys and girls.
Roundtable discussion.
Just some teachers talking about teaching and laughing and having a good time.
Role-playing games.
Oh, yeah. For you nerds out there, you know you're going to like that stuff.
Radio drama.
Dum-dum-dum-dum. Ah!
and really funny people.
At least really funny looking, if nothing else. 1 to 9 on June 27th, Eastern Standard Time. We'll be live streaming. There'll be links. We'll put it on the Twitter. We'll make sure that you know where it is. Follow us at Unprocast if you're not already, because that's probably going to be the easiest way to know when it's going live.
June 27th. Free up your calendar now.
Thank you. So, like, the two things I wanted to ask you before we finish up here is, because I think we've really covered a lot of the parallels between homeschooling and teaching people about podcasting, because I know that you help people that are wanting to learn how to podcast. And if you can also kind of maybe give us some ideas of how teachers could use podcasts and podcasting to facilitate learning in their classroom.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, the whole entire podcasting thing for me was when I first started it, and I always say podcasting saved my life because as I mentioned before, I had a really hard time with that whole interpersonal communication kind of stuff, speaking up, going in lines, and I felt like, and asking for something, like if my mom gave me here's $5, go get me some gum.
Right.
I was like, the anxiety that it brought me was insane. It was just extra for so many different things of advocating for myself in public spaces. Yeah. And mind you, I was an actor. I was on stage. There's so much weird, bizarre things that don't make sense that I'm a huge paradox.
Compartmentalize stuff. Things,
but at the same time, I'm able to do it in the way that I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that way, it makes me feel safe.
I'm also pretty introverted. It's very different when you're on stage.
Yes, isn't it? It's bizarre.
Because when you're presenting to other people, there's really no interaction there.
Yes.
You're kind of just pretending they don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
When you have to, be on the same level as them, nope.
It's so much, absolutely. Yeah. And so even when I was teaching yoga classes, I would get essentially on stage and I would teach these really great yoga classes and people loved my classes. And I have a lot of energy and I know what that skill set is for me, that I have that way of helping people be inspired. But the minute that I'm off the class, it was hoodie on, don't talk to me. Because it's over. I've given it. You go now. You don't come and try and be my best friend. That's not me all day, every day. That was my thing. But anyway, coming back to the fact that the act of podcasting, of having to know that I was being recorded, the skill that it gave me in having the mic in front of me and having to be clear when I spoke, and not having the out of mumbling, of saying things like this. What? I had to really say it.
Yes.
And it's on. All of that really built my confidence when it came to speaking as myself.
Yeah.
Because we talked about before, when I was acting and all that stuff, I'm acting like this other person, not like me. And this gave me that skill set, and it really provided the option for building that public speaking skill, are being articulate, being able to read and sound like I'm not reading, all of those things were very important to me. So I do think that this is of value for a lot of people. And it's also what I see as, especially for teachers, I talk about this all the time. It's sort of there are some kids who are really great at public speaking all the time. They're just really comfortable and all whatnot. But there are some that need, it's kind of like learning, you need riding a bike, you need those little safety wheels, right? The training wheels.
Mm-hmm.
I find that the microphone can be a training wheel.
Interesting.
Because it's it's in front of you and you can speak it and you can have a time of testing of speaking out, but you're only speaking into the mic. It's a sort of a detached, it's something in between that's keeping you safe. And it gives you the option of practicing. So that to me has been great.
The kids now know hey, you know what? If you mess up, you just record it again. Or you edit it out, the blips or whatever, and here's your public speaking, and it's going to be awesome. And there's millions of public speakers who that's the only way that they can public speak well, because by having that edit button, by having the multi takes, and where it looks like they're really polished and trained, but they're really as rough as anyone else would be going up and speaking in front of people. So yeah.
So to me, it was really, that has been very important. And the other aspect that I think, in terms of education, being able to tell a story, being able to do all the bits and pieces that we talked about before, where you have to do a script or you have to do an outline. and keep a conversation going and staying on point or not staying on point on purpose, understanding how to craft a podcast episode from start to finish, like how you introduce it, where's the chunk of content that you have, is there music in there, do you really need the music, how long is it going to be, and the skill set that it takes to edit. So even being able to edit is really, I think, a powerful thing as well, because you get an opportunity, like especially for folks who are maybe reading is not the way that they really capture the world, or they have a harder time reading and maybe writing. Yep. Maybe with listening, they can take off, certain words, and they can hear that edit point was really great. Then it can translate to the written word and see, see, this is why we remove these sentences, because they're not necessary. And it still carries the same meaning. So there's all of those layers. With my girls, they've been exposed to me recording so much that they're really... That language is part of their world. Like even right now, I said, I'm going to go record a podcast interview, and they know exactly what I'm doing. They know to leave me alone. They know what I'm doing. And they've also been exposed to microphones all their lives. And so I've had them record. When I get a new piece of gear, I'll set them up and I'll let them play and let them play recording. And it's been really fun for them. And my daughter, Hunter, this year, she got an opportunity to record. She wrote a story. Like there were submissions for a podcast called, I think it's called 80 Stories. And it was stories about quarantine. It just happened like right as we were getting into quarantine. I would say like in June, she might have recorded it. Then she was asking.
I remember you talking about it. I remember you mentioning it. Yeah. On your podcast.
She submitted her story. It was like a 5-minute little thing. It was about her waking up, thinking she was going to go to school, because we had a homeschool co-op that we went to, and thinking that she was going to go to school, and then realizing that she wasn't going anymore, and then realizing that today was the day she was going back, and the happiness that she felt going back to school. Yeah. And she read the story. Like I put her down and go, this is the thing. And I just sat her down and she read the story essentially in one take. Then I came back, I listened, and then I gave her a couple notes, and I said, this is a point here, this point needs a little like more emphasis. This is where like I kind of directed her a little bit. Yeah. And then she did it again, and then I cut it together and sent it over. But it was so good, and she didn't realize, I don't think she realizes how good she is. She's really good at that stuff. Like most people are like, what? And you hear her voice, and she just has a natural, I think she mimics me.
Yeah.
And so then when she hears how I read or how I bring emphasis and stuff, or maybe it's not that she mimics me. Maybe that is a talent that she also has. Right. That she's able to convey.
It's hard to tell nature and nurture sometimes.
Yeah, totally. But it's great. Her whole thing, I was just like, she's so
Oh, what a proud mama. Yes.
I know.
Yes. Oh, by the way, I'm going to pick on you just a little bit, okay?
Oh, gosh.
Okay. And maybe it's happening, maybe it isn't happening. And I am not a drinker. I haven't had a drink in over 25 years. But I think every time you say the word thing would be a good She Podcast drinking game.
Or like, because oh my gosh.
Yes.
Thing and like, you should see my...
But you and Jess always say all the things. All the
things. I'm constantly saying that. It is, now I'm using it in my copy. It's crazy how I'm marketing with all the things.
You need you should have a She Podcast t-shirt that has all the things on it. You really should.
It's like, it literally...
Come to She Podcast Live for all the things.
Stay for the things.
And stay for the things. All the things. Because it's just everything. All the things.
It's the most singable podcast out there.
Oh.
I mean, if you did an unprofessional development drinking game, then Mealey, let's swing that judgmental pendulum back on ourselves.
Yes.
Fairness.
Sure. What would it be?
Every time I mumble at the end of a joke and everyone misses the punchline.
Yes.
Yeah.
We already had the one every time I mentioned the fact that I had Tony Danza on the podcast. Drink again
every time
now.
I mentioned Tony Danza.
Yes. And
it's hard. Those who edit know all the things.
Yes.
Because he honestly, the other day he told me, he goes, you need to stop saying like. It's time to do it. And then he sent me all of the... He gave me a deep cut.
Like a super cut of just every like?
Yes.
Oh,
And he sent
that's
it to
painful.
me, and I was
Underneath it, did
God.
he have In the Hall of the Mountain King playing? Because I find that's the most effective way.
Well, I have no idea what that
Bring
is.
point home.
I don't get that reference, but I'm glad Elsie does. Okay.
Oh my gosh, it's like, yeah. See, I can't stop, and so it's so hard to be able to do that. But
It is.
I am so thankful for him, and it didn't hurt my feelings at all. And again, I say that to the girls, and that was something that was a teaching moment.
Mhm.
I played it for them.
Yeah.
And I said,
Oh, wow.
the first step when you are looking to, particularly speaking out and using your voice,
Yeah.
the first step is to see the subconscious, to see what you do unconsciously
Yeah.
so that you can pick it out. And part of it is that you have to feel it. You got to feel it in your mouth. You got to feel it
Yeah.
in your body.
Oof.
And so in that respect, I want them to understand that, because that's part of life.
Yeah.
And a
growing.
lot of the time when it comes to speaking, we say things, but we don't feel them because they're subconscious habits
Yep.
that we have about the way that we use our language, or the way that we use the words, or the way that we finish sentences. And maybe somebody's like this the whole time, right? And then but you have to understand what that feels like or what it sounds like so that you can stop it.
Yeah. And I'll throw this caveat in there. You have to decide if it's a bug or a feature.
Yes, absolutely.
You know?
And how much.
Right.
Right. Because it has to be at the right amount.
Right.
Because
right,
there's
right.
times when.
It's a feature and it can drift off into bug. Yeah.
Yeah. You just want to make it stop. It's just,
Yeah.
you can never unhear it.
Right.
And that's what's so hard. When you've heard it, you can never unhear it.
Oh, yeah.
That glass shatters and you'll never put it back together.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh my
Awesome. Okay. Tudisco, did you have any more questions here for Elsie before we let her go?
No, this has been wonderful.
Yes.
Do you have anything else you want to share with us, Elsie?
No, I'm good. I think this was great.
Yes.
And when it comes to podcasting, I do feel that the act of podcasting is a really powerful or a tool in the classroom. I really do. Even moving away from the technicalities of it with, RSS feeds and all of that stuff, the act of recording audio and listening to yourself, even just the process of moving through that is a really powerful thing.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that it took me years to be comfortable listening to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all need that. We all need to have the ability to listen to ourselves, to really hear the human voice and how it's coming out, because most of us only hear it as we hear it coming out of our own mouth. I don't know how to say it. You don't hear it inside of your own ears, or however our voices sound to other people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same that we hear.
Right.
So when we hear ourselves, it's a really powerful thing. It's being able to look at yourself in the mirror and again, be okay with that aspect of yourself as well, particularly for women. It is a very challenging thing, I feel, for a lot of women more than men to be comfortable with the sound of their own voices, whether it is nurtured, whether it's culture, social, whatever it is. There is something about being okay with the sound of your own voice, and also not just yourself, but society in general.
Yes.
It's really hard. Like, there's a lot of criticism that comes to women's voices because the expectations of what they're supposed to sound like is really only the small lens in which that has been, I don't know, out in the world, I guess. And so whenever a woman's voice doesn't align with what we think they're supposed to be, we immediately criticize it.
I remember that whole vocal fry thing.
Yeah.
You think back to, like, it's so ingrained in American culture, Paul Coffey's weird, I guess, not just him, but the traditional, like, announcer, deep-voiced man that, like, so many of us grew up with and heard, like, okay, this is what, like, someone with authority sounds like, because that's what I've heard all the time. It's a complete social construct. It has nothing to do with whether or not someone's authoritative or not, but when it's been ingrained in you for so many years that you're like, oh, this is what someone who is an authority on things sounds like. Walter Cronkite, or Dan Rather, all those people that had that Don Pardo from Saturday Night Live, even all that. What are you going to, Tudisco, you're thinking really hard there.
I was just realizing that I don't think I've ever heard a movie trailer where the voiceover was done by a woman.
No.
Very hard. There's been a couple that I've seen, but this is something that has been brought to attention. Interestingly enough, you're hitting the nail on the head there. And it's not at times just that opportunities have not been given.
Mm-hmm.
It's that when the opportunity is given, society says no.
Oh.
In addition to
it.
Right. And then right. And if the
Yeah.
dollars don't follow it somehow, then they won't change,
Yeah, they won't. And that's such a hard thing to be able to advocate for stuff like that. And I forgot what it was. I think I saw a documentary about just that. I think there was a woman who was the daughter of a real famous voiceover, like, announcer person.
Right.
I think it was not even a
movie
documentary.
like that called In a World,
Yes.
Yeah.
but it was fictional.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. It was In a World. I think that's what it was. And I think,
Yeah.
and that's what she
You
was
know,
talking about, how she wasn't going to do In a World.
You'll never hear a woman's voice start, a voiceover that way.
No.
Yeah,
Oh.
but it's crazy how we do that. And even, like, I was just thinking about the Law and Order, how they have the guy
Mm-hmm.
start the voiceover at
Oh,
the
yes.
beginning of all the Law and Order, like, things,
Yes.
the franchises. They always have, like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
In the criminal justice system,
In the
there-
criminal
yeah,
justice. I don't think I've ever heard a woman
Right.
read that.
Yeah. Or Joe Friday from Dragnet, the whole
That's
the
right.
whole thing as well.
With their
Yes.
stories.
It's everywhere. Yeah, it really
Yeah.
is.
Wow, I didn't even think about that. Oh my
Crazy,
goodness.
right?
Yes. Then other thing that's really, really powerful that you can do besides having kids record and make podcasts is there is a infinite amount of podcasts you could use for learning in your
Oh, yeah.
classroom.
Would you say
Whether
a
it's
plethora?
a plethora. There is a plethora. Okay. A plethora of podcasts. Let me pop my peas with a plethora of podcasts there.
It's the podcast about all the things.
Exactly.
Yes.
But so whether it's like a topic for history, whether it's, something with science, whether it's short stories being read by my boy LeVar Burton, okay, get him, okay. So glad he's finally going to be guest hosting on Jeopardy. They better give him that stinking job. Anyway,
Yes.
but there's so many things out there that you can say, all right, hey, you don't really like reading? Here's like a 20-minute, reading of a short story that we're all going to listen to, and then we're going to break down, and we're going to discuss, and we're going to talk about all the things that we normally talk about when we
Yeah.
read a short story, whether it be the characters, the theme, and all of that. And all of a sudden the kids are like, oh wow, that was really, really cool. That was much better than this book that I was going to read, because there's other things. So that's another way to use podcasting in the classroom, boys and girls.
Absolutely. Yep.
I also think it'd be really helpful and beneficial too to our students where English isn't their first language.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And just hearing that, their accent and hearing that it's okay to listen to a voice with an accent.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And that you can, if they're struggling, they can adjust it to like 0.5 speed to kind of pick up those things. I've been trying to listen to, I'm trying to work on my Spanish, and I've been, listening to a Spanish speaking podcast occasionally on 0.5 speed to kind of like let me pick up a little, some of the words to kind of go there. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good tip. That's a really good tip.
Yeah. Or 0.8, I guess, not by about 0.5, 0.8. But yeah. Yeah. That's another thing. Yeah. If this podcast is too long for you, listen to it on 1.5 speed. Just do that.
It's
All
how
right?
I do my show notes too. It's like it
Yeah.
cuts down our time, my
It cut-
time. I go, show notes, 1.75.
Nice.
Side effects of this podcast may include.
Alrighty. So guys, tune into She Podcast. It's spelled just like it sounds, okay?
And there's a
you
link in the show notes.
There is a link in the show notes. And what you do at Libsyn, would anyone who's listening to this want to contact you at Libsyn and do anything? Or is that more like you just do it for Libsyn? You don't do it for podcasting and regular people? I don't really know what you do there, actually.
Oh, I'm the community manager over there. So I run all the social media and all the communications, the front-facing communications when it comes to podcasting and advocacy, basically, for podcasts, or podcasting.
Yes.
Around the place, talking about podcast. It's all I do all day.
Okay. Okie dokie. Cool.
And
Yeah.
if somebody had a question for you about podcasting, could they ask you like on Twitter?
Yeah, absolutely. They can. I mean, I've written a series actually in Spanish and in English about how to start a podcast on the Libsyn blog as well. So for sure. Following Libsyn has all of on social, we do publish a lot of the newest, news, information, relevant podcasting things on that feed. If you want to just kind of be in the know of what's going on in the podcasting space as well. That's a really just easy thing. If you don't do anything but that, you'll at least be informed.
Awesome. Alrighty, so that's gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much again, Elsie, for coming. Like I said, big fan. Just so glad to finally get to meet you in person. So that's one of the joys of being a podcaster as well. You get to meet really cool people all the time.
It's quite a thing.
It is. It's quite a thing. And as we always say at the end, guys, stay unprofessional.
Thanks for listening, Unprofessionals. Please check the show notes for more information about our guests and just funny links for other things. And here's a little sample of next week's episode.
So I moved to Newcastle upon Tyne, which is in the north of England.
Okay.
Might have heard they've got a rubbish.
It's also a famous beer in America.
Yeah. It's a hideous beer. Have you ever drunk it?
Yeah. I like Newcastle.
Yeah.
Oh, Newcastle.
I know a lot of hippies like it. I don't drink anymore, but I know the hippies used to like it anyway. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's Mr. Hippie to you.
Okay.
Anyway, so I moved to Newcastle and I became the advisor for PE in Newcastle. So that meant that I advised teachers in primary schools and secondary schools how to teach better PE.
Okay.
And I loved it because it was great. Again, it was focusing on teaching and I absolutely loved it. And then about 2 years in, I could see the funding was starting to go and the things were moving and the government was putting funding into different projects. And they offered me a job to manage a school sport partnership. So I kind of went from being in my happy car, which maybe was a Volkswagen Beetle.
There you go. Yes.
To a car that I actually didn't know how to drive.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I don't know what kind of
space
car it
shuttle.
was.
Yes.
It totally was.
Maybe yes.
Yeah. So I'd gone from doing everything I enjoyed. I loved teaching, I loved PE, into a job where I was managing budgets, managing 17 remote staff,
Oof.
Data, analysis, nothing to do with teaching PE. Everything I didn't know.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I didn't know how to drive, didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
It's like the Mitch Hedberg joke.
So-
You work really, really hard to be a cook, and then someone's like, "Can you farm?"
Exactly.
And just to pick on you a little bit, so I'm sure that the 17 people who you were managing really appreciated your ineptitude at doing your own job. I bet they thought that was awesome.
Nice, Mealey.
Thank you. I'm just trying to get a little perspective here. Hey, how about our new boss that doesn't know how to do this? Isn't this cool?
Well, it was a whole new project, so they'd never been in the job either.
Okay. Oh, then that's good. That's good. Yeah. Yes. Then you just convince them whatever you're doing is right. Yeah.
Well, it was easy because the government was throwing money at us. We couldn't spend it. So
That's a thing that rarely happens.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it happens a lot here actually that we've got this new initiative. Let's throw money at it and see if it works.
Yeah.
So we had so much money, we were constantly buying new tracksuits. And one Christmas, I said to them, "I think we need new phones." And I turned up to a team meeting, opened the trunk of my car, and 17 iPhones in there. Yeah, we need a new iPhone. We need to keep in touch. We need to spend the money. So,
Wow.
so after, I know, ridiculous amount of money. So I knew it was
When you show up with new iPhones, you're all of a sudden the really cool boss. Yeah.
cool boss who can't lead, but she buys us nice stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So it kind of changed slightly, and I then got back into training teachers, and I did a bit of lecturing at a local college for PE teachers. And I could see that this was never going to last because the money was unsustainable. So already I was thinking, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd also realised that the training that I was doing for teachers